I'm Truman the Grey Merchant, and I don't want a Planar Chaos 2. I contain multitudes. To be more specific, I don't want a Planar Chaos 2 that repeats the mistakes of the original. I think the plane shifted cards were an interesting thought experiment, but ultimately detrimental to the game, as demonstrated by how often I see people claim a color can do something today based on 3 cards from the 90s and 1 from the time-shifted sheet. That said, I'd love to see a Planar Chaos 2 that plays up the alternate flavor choices of the original. If anything, I think Planar Chaos underutilized that idea. For this video, I challenged myself to come up with a what-if concept for every single set/block with a specific setting, plus some fun extras. What if you liked and subscribed? You'd probably watch some entertaining videos. For many of these, the most obvious choice would be to take a good character and have them be evil, or vice versa. Many of Planar Chaos's what-if cards follow this alternate allegiance model. However, I want to fight that low-hanging fruit for variety's sake, and because a set can't exclusively be legendary creatures. To begin, Alpha provides an opportunity for the infamous Gorgari Sarah Angel. In the vein of Sarah Spinks, one of the more agreeable plane-shifted cards, perhaps a Sarah Demon. Arabian Nights is interesting because its setting, Rabaya, retroactively received the alternate reality treatment. To represent that aspect, and to avoid using real-life concepts, I think this would be a good place to finally give Taser a card, with the power he was originally said to have. Since he's a fusion of different realities versions of the same person, he's a perfect fit for the set. For Antiquities/Brothers War, I think it would be interesting if Mishra sparked instead of Urza. Would he fall to Phyrexia or use his newfound powers to oppose them? How would Dominaria fare? Certainly not better, but perhaps not worse. And I promise these won't all be Planeswalkers. In fact, for Legends, what if Ugin didn't spark, stayed for the Elder Dragons War, and received a card in the vein of the original Elder Dragons? The Dark is challenging because it's more about vibes than a specific story, but what if the Church of Tal, who hated mages and artificers, went after a prominent Dominaran character of the era? Someone do timeline math and figure out who makes the most sense. Actually, I just did it and the answers filled in. For Fallen Empires, I want to see a reality where the Thalids take over all of Dominaria, as they are low-key one of the plane's greatest threats. What if the Ice Age never ended, and future Dominarian events happened, but cold? This was actually briefly seen in a Time Spiral book, but I don't believe it showed up on any of the cards. Just think, Cold Invasion, Cold Odyssey, Cold Snap. What if Homelands actually had an ending, and we saw the results of Baron Singir's attempted invasions? Where does that portal go? It would be fun if we saw the army ended up on Theros or something. Mirage Block's obvious change point would be the Mirage War. What if the nearby, Bolas-ruled, Japan-inspired Empire of Madara became involved in the conflict? What if Tempest Block's Wrath captured peoples from places besides Dominaria and Zendikar, like Moonfolk or Bloomborough Animal Folk? What if Portal Second Age's factions weren't quarantined on their weird gun island? For Urza's block, what if Sarah's realm fully succumbed to the Phyrexians and wasn't sacrificed to power the Weatherlight? For Masks and Invasion blocks, it would be fun to see cards based on the original Weatherlight pitch. Watch my Lost Media video. This could include the Stark Murder Mystery, Dragon Volrath, elderly rebel leader Urtai, or my choice, accidental time travel. Alternatively, for Invasion block, we could see the Nine Titans partially composed of planeswalkers who were created after 2001, but canonically alive during that era, like Sorin, Ob Nixilis, Azor, and possibly Crucius. It's hinted that the Odyssey/Onslaught block's Cabal had an interest in the Riptide Project's slivers. What if they successfully gain control of that experiment? Would they incorporate them into their gladiatorial combat? Would they go further? In Mirrodin block, Glissa loses her latent Planeswalker spark. What if it actually ignited? What if Kamigawa block's Kami War ended in complete Kami success, leaving a desolate, mind-bending spirit plane? For Ravnica block, it'd be interesting to see the guilds more permanently affected by the story's conclusion. The block ends with the original guild pack broken, the guilds diminished, and the Simic collapsed. Return to Ravnica's story deals with some of this, but walks back aspects to provide the expected Ravnica set structure and world building. In Planar Chaos 2, we could see a Ravnica with the guilds non-existent, or even more desperately clinging to power. A planar chaos version of Time Spiral block would be somewhat redundant, but I suppose we could see Leshrac victorious in his great duel with Nicobolus, making him one of the primary supervillains of that reality. Lauren/Shadowmoor is another setting that essentially already has the alternate reality treatment. Would it be cheating to choose an extension of Nissa's pre-retcon origin? I'm cashing in my evil version of a good character coin for elf supremacist Nissa. What if Alara Block's progenitus did something? The soul of the world has returned. Cool. Is Mr. Ward going to participate in any of this? M10 to M15 are hard to classify since there is a consistent setting on the non-reprint cards, but not much of a story. Their most developed concept is the Onake, so the best choice would probably be something with them. What if they weren't massacred? With the Chain Veil and other powerful artifacts in their hands, how would Chandalar fare? What if the three imprisoned the Eldrazi on somewhere other than Zendikar, like Arkevios or Kaldheim? Scar's Block is another release that essentially already has an alternate version to pull from, Mirrored and Pure. For Innistrad Block, what if Avacyn turned against her creator and killed Sorin to best protect Innistrad? What if Return to Ravnica Block's Melik actually got to run the Implicit Maze? I bet he would have done a good job. Theros is a world where dreams and faith shape reality, making a butterfly effect especially easy to visualize. For example, what if the God of Love survived until the present day? I'm going to combine both conspiracy sets because they otherwise would have two very similar pitches of alternate monarchs. Let's go with Grinzo. I like Grinzo. Tarkir Block is yet another storyline that literally has two alternate universes. I don't know. What if Ugin wasn't a deadbeat and actually did something with his dragon spawn? Magic Origins is centered around the Gatewatch members, Sparkings, and First Planeswalks. What if they arrived on different planes, like Chandra to Amonkhet, or Liliana to Eldraine? In Battle for Zendikar Block, Ugin makes the argument that killing the Eldrazi would have terrible, unforeseen consequences. What if it did? In Shadow's Block, Nahiri pulls an all-powerful entity from across the Blind Eternities. What if, instead of Emrakul, it was the Dragon? What if Chandra's father survived instead of her mother? How would Kaladesh Block go differently if Kiran took Pia's place? Famously, Amonkhet Block subverted expectations by having the Gatewatch lose. To subvert the subversion, what if they won? I didn't intend for Nicobolus to lose in so many of these. The ending of Ixalan Block's story was determined by an audience poll, with the Sun Empire taking Orzaka. However, the alternate non-canon endings were also released, giving a clear source to pull from. My favorite is the Legion of Dusk ending because Vona gets eaten by a dinosaur. It's briefly mentioned in the Dominaria story that Joda and Droira dated in the past because they're both immortal, and presumably because their names sound similar. They broke up, as happens. What if they didn't? There are actually surprisingly few successful relationships in Magic. Battlebond's Kylum is a world of non-deadly sport combat, which I love. However, a one-off version that goes all in on blood sport could be fun. The Global Series does not give us a whole lot to work with its 40 new cards, but we can manage. Movu is suggested to be able to planeswalk with Yongu because he is made of rock. What if he had a card that represented that by having him be an artifact creature? In the third Ravnica Visit pseudo-block, the Gruul believe that the supposedly apocalyptic End-Raze is imminent, and their destructive god Ilharg even arrives. But he doesn't actually do much. What if he did? Bring destruction not only to Bolas's army, but all of Ravnican civilization. For Throne of Eldraine, let's take inspiration from the non-canonical trailer and have Sir Ginger kill, or at least blind, Garruk. For Theros Beyond Death, it's difficult to do a twist on a story that we don't really know, but again, we'll manage. Calyx is a character defined by his allegiance to Clothith and her mission. What would it be like for him to reject that mission and his goddess? At least we'd finally see him do something. Narset has a card in Ikoria, but barely appears in the story. What if she participated in the events of the set? Zendikar Rising deals heavily with the remains of the tyrannical Makindi Empire, which ruled Zendikar in the distant past. I would enjoy seeing what they might look like if they persisted until the modern day. In Kaldheim's past, the Skodi defeated the Einir to become the Plains' new gods. This provides another clear divergence point, as a modern Kaldheim ruled by the Einir and their ally Koma would be quite different. In Strixhaven's world building, the plane of Arcavios used to be consumed by war during the Blood Age. It came to an end when the Founder Dragons created Strixhaven University to educate mortals and build communities of peace. What if, instead, the Blood Age continued into the era of Strixhaven, with all education geared towards carnage? When I first heard that the latest Innistrad block would include a vampiric wedding, I hoped for an unhappy political marriage between Soren and Olivia. Since that didn't end up happening, let's do that here. In Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, the Asari uprisers failed to remove the Imperials from power. I'd like to see them succeed, because frankly, I don't trust the Kami selection process. Pinna's backstory involved a failed Phyrexian invasion, reduced to scattered holdouts like the one that imprisoned Elspeth's family. What if they refuse to integrate with New Phyrexia's invasion, rejecting Norn's vision as heretical? Yes, I just want the Dalek thing from Doctor Who. A big part of Dominaria United is the idea that anybody could be a secret Phyrexian, but we don't actually see that many returning characters secretly turned. Ajani is the only real example of that. For that reason, I humbly submit Phyrexian Squee. In Phyrexia RB1, the Silex plan is eventually abandoned because of its unknown consequences to the multiverse and possibly even the Blind Eternities. I want those consequences to become known. Perhaps the most obvious choice for March of the Machine would be what if the Phyrexians won, but that's too obvious. What if Urabrask's rebellion succeeded? Would these more laissez-faire Phyrexians be allowed to live by the rest of the multiverse? In Wilds of Eldraine, the courts have fallen, and many of the knights have abandoned loyalty to the throne for various ideological reasons. I'd like to see more of a focus on that resentment, boiling over to a full-blown revolution. I've got nothing against Will, but Eldraine's monarchy is not supposed to be hereditary, and frankly, I don't trust the questing beast selection process. Wait. In Lost Caverns of Ixalan, we learn that the continent of Torazone received far less of the brunt of the invasion than the continent of Ixalan and the islands in between. What if the opposite occurred, with both the Legion of Dusk and the Sun Empire in perilous political situations? A reversal of fortunes would greatly change things. In Murders at Karlov Manor, Judith attempted to frame Rakdos in order to take control of his guild. What if she succeeded? In Under Junction, Kellen learned of his father Oko's villainy and rejected it. What if his desire for that relationship won out and he joined Oko? Bloomborough already got hypothetical character transformations, which I found delightful. Tree Karn would be way up there on my Karn sadness list, by the way. Anyway, Bloomborough was apparently not invaded by the Phyrexians, so I'd like to see that. Not because I want to see the animal folk get hurt, but because I want to see what would happen to the Phyrexians. Duskmourn had a choose-your-own adventure story, which when you think about it, is another execution on the idea of alternate realities. But in the main storyline, Eminato chooses not to enter the plane because of the risk of the demon Valgavoth taking her power. What if he did? That's the end of the sets, but not on my list. The next category is non-canonical MTG media. You know, stuff that didn't really happen.
None of these things ever really happened.
Magic Legends Continuity introduced a number of story concepts, apparently. I didn't play it, and it no longer exists. I chose the Sanctum, a haven for planeswalkers. Menastrike introduced a number of features directly identified as what-ifs. Since it's the most famous, or infamous, I chose Heart of the Aether Robot Gideon. I'll be honest, I also haven't played Battlegrounds, and online resources on it are scarce. So let's just give the dude on the cover a card. Also, I was going to include Ven, the magic spellslinger's homunculus, but it appears he'll be an Aether Drift. Good on him for Miles Moralesing himself out of a defunct universe. The alternate continuity Boom comics provide a number of fun concepts to choose from an 8th Niv-Mizzet to a 16th Jace. Ultimately, I chose Vraska defeating Aurelia, one of my favorite moments from the comic. Finally, since the silver-bordered sets, which take place in an alternate multiverse, have characters from the regular multiverse, it is possible that the regular multiverse has characters from the Universe. So I chose one character each from Unstable and Unfinity. Thanks for watching. This topic has endless possibilities, so I would love to hear more from y'all. Let me know below. As always, thank you to my patrons. You can support my channel there, through a YouTube membership, or by just watching another one of my videos. Bye!